Welcome to another edition of Down the Road. Got a big, broad scope for you today. We're going to talk to a union head. We're going to talk to him about what's going on at Kellogg and how that affects people that process food. The workers at Kellogg, all those cereals that you like, walked out. And so how do you work out an agreement like this so that you can still buy your Frosted Flakes? Well, we'll visit with him about it. Also, know this. On today, we're going to get Sergeant Jesse Graybo on. We're going to talk about the Zero Deaths initiative that the state of Minnesota has. But before we do that, it's my policy to get every redhead I can in the state of North Dakota on, so this is one more step. Shawn Kessel joins us. Shawn is the Deputy Commissioner at the North Dakota Department of Commerce. Shawn, good to have you down the road with us.
Thank you, Joel. Really appreciate being here, and I'm a proud redhead just like you.
Yeah, the upside for you is yours is still red. I noticed mine's going a little white, so you hang in there for us, okay?
I didn't think redheads went gray. Don't tell those secrets, Joel.
Well, just a little, just a smattering. So, Shawn, Department of Commerce, you've got a big initiative that's going to be taking place in West Fargo. Why don't you tell people about it?
Oh, thanks a lot, Joel. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, we're really excited. We have the summit, the Main Street Initiative Summit. It's going to be going on Tuesday, the 12th of October at the Rusted Recreation Center in West Fargo. This is the first time we're going to hold this summit outside of Bismarck, and we're really proud to show off some of the great things that West Fargo has done. This year's theme is on smart infrastructure, one of the three pillars of the Main Street Initiative. And we chose West Fargo purposefully because of the infrastructure advancements that they've been doing, the mixed-use developments that are going on in their downtown. And we're just so happy to be able to showcase those improvements that they're making in West Fargo.
You know, Shawn, you've been involved in the game of economic development for a long time. I first met you in Wahpeton. From Wahpeton, you headed out to Dickinson, then you went to work. I don't think there was another stop between then and the Department of Commerce. So now you can work on it as a whole statewide perspective. You know, you talk about growth. Did you ever in a million years when you were at Wahpeton think West Fargo was going to be what it is today?
I can't. West Fargo is just amazing in its growth, but it's not the only shining gem that's in North Dakota. We've got so many communities that are growing. Dickinson, when I was there, was one of those communities. Watford City, Williston, Tioga. There's just so many. If Horace, you know, close by here to your neck of the woods. So there's a lot of great things going on in North Dakota. We want to showcase those. We have award-winning communities. We want to show off what they've done well. You can use it as a best practice in your community so that you can emulate what they're doing. Make it your own. Make sure they make it their own. But we have such an opportunity for growth. So many more jobs available than people. So community development is key right now to try and get enough employees to fill all these jobs and come to North Dakota.
So, you know, if I was still living in the same small town that I grew up in, and it doesn't matter that I'm not living there, I hope they send someone to this summit. But if you're a town of 100, like Matador is, actually a little bit less now, you know, is there something here for you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that question, because what we tried to do at the Main Street Summit is provide solutions for people. I already mentioned those best practices that other communities are implementing in North Dakota, but we're also bringing in nationally known speakers that are going to share some trends and some things that are happening across the nation. And one of those things is the exodus from urban America. People are looking in this COVID world for safety. They're looking for security, and they can work from anywhere. So as long as you've got an internet connection, that's what they're looking for is a safe place that they can raise their kids. And what a better place than in North Dakota to do that. So Matador can do that, and so can any other smaller community in North Dakota.
Shawn, I want to talk about that, because some of the challenges that are being faced. If I were sitting in that room with you at the Rusted Building in West Fargo, the one thing I'd look at you and say, all right, here's what I have. Here's the troubles that I have. I don't have workers, and I don't have workers because I don't have daycare. I don't have the type of things I need. How do you solve those? I mean, what are folks going to hear that day?
Well, you solve them with collaboration. You know, there's no other way to do that than collaborating with the private sector and the public sector together is my belief. We're actually a part of the Accelerate North Dakota initiative that Governor Burgum has endorsed is a program that Commerce, well, there's several programs that Commerce is lucky enough to be able to promote and hopefully implement. One of those things is a workforce housing program. When we go across North Dakota to visit our MSI communities, that's the hurdles we hear, the ones that you just said. We need housing, we need daycare before we can even get workforce. So we've got a program that we hope gets funded by the legislature that will allow communities to identify blighted properties, will help them resolve those problems by either refurbishing those historically significant buildings or eliminating those blighted properties. So you can reuse existing infrastructure to build the kind of workforce housing that is desired by those people that are coming into our communities from elsewhere. Migration and immigration are going to be the ways that North Dakota grows. Our census statistics has shown that. We're just not having enough births, so we need people to come to North Dakota, so we need our communities to be the best that they can be.
Shawn, I'm going to give you an example, and this was years ago, and it showed. It showed in this community versus how the other communities ended up looking, quite frankly. But I'm going to use an example of the little town of Morton, North Dakota. Now, granted, you know where Morton is because you worked Richland County, but Morton is right between Wyndmere and Wahpeton, but it's right off the interstate, so it's got a great location. But there were leaders in that town that had a firm belief, if you don't mow your yard, we're going to mow it for you and we're going to bill you. There were leaders in that town that said, you know what, if there's not shingles on your house, then by God, we're going to tell you. There were leaders in that town that told their nephews that, you know what, grab the tractor, pull out that car out in the country because it doesn't have tabs on it and it hasn't had tabs for quite a while. And you know what, they'll get it back when they have tabs. Those are some pretty strong steps, but they're steps that people still brag about in Morton because it set a tone for small towns. And I'm just curious what you think about that.
You know, every community has to decide for themselves what is their best way to put their best foot forward. If that's what Morton decided to do, then kudos to them. Because, you know, when people walk through our communities, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And those things that they were doing were furthering that cause. So now if a new visitor to Morton goes through and they don't see some of those blighted things, maybe they're more inclined to come back to Morton. So I don't have a problem with the things that they did there. I hope that communities do take a good, hard, and honest look at what their community looks like, especially from those transportation, those highways that people are accessing it from. What's the first thing they see when they see your community? If it's not something that you're proud of, work to change that. So I certainly don't have a problem with what Morton did in order to put their best foot forward.
I want to talk to you about another town community, Shawn, and that's Tulna. I was up in Tulna recently doing some radio, and they used a school that, you know, I shouldn't say abandoned, but there was nobody going to school in it anymore. You know, they had consolidated. They turned that school into about 3 businesses, one of which was a daycare. And so, the money that you're looking for the legislature to, you know, that they got in from the federal government, I'm assuming, right, Shawn?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
This is federal government pass-through money.
Okay. So the legislature empower past infrastructure to be redone so that it can be used on new projects. Is that part of the proposal?
Absolutely. It is our hope that the smart, efficient use of infrastructure includes the reuse of that infrastructure. So the program that I kind of alluded to earlier, one of the great things about it is it eliminates blight from your community. It builds the workforce housing that is desired, but it reuses existing infrastructure. And that's so important because new infrastructure is really expensive, both from the standpoint of constructing it to begin with, but also maintaining it. You know, once it's built, you've got to maintain that for 50 years or more. So we really want people to take a good, hard look at making those decisions. We've actually implemented a calculator. It's on our website. If you go to Main Street, North Dakota, you'll find it. It's just a tool to help you understand the long-term costs of new infrastructure. So we want data. We want people to understand the data when they're making these kinds of decisions. So the reuse of existing infrastructure is something we endorse.
Shawn, one other example I can give you of towns. I realize I'm not focusing on the big towns and the downtowns of Fargo and the new basic downtowns of West Fargo, but I understand rural towns because that's where I grew up. And so I live by Hankinson right now. Hankinson was home for me for a long time. It's where I went to school, where my kids went to school. They have a very aggressive community, and I love it. An example would be some ground that they had where they were close to water, sewer. They put all that into a bunch of lots, and then they started building spec homes. And right now, everybody is waiting for a home to live into that development. Is this money that you're talking about, could that be used for something like that?
The money, the specific program that I'm talking about is there to build workforce housing that the community has identified a need for. So in other words, our hope is what they do is they identify what industries in their community are in need of employees. They then look at, okay, who is most likely to fill those jobs? What does that demographic look like? And then they build the housing that is more specific to attract that demographic. And we want them to do that by also identifying blighted properties within a community. Those eyesores that have been around forever. And we all know that they exist in North Dakota. There's 357 incorporated communities in North Dakota. The vast majority of them are 1,000 people or less. So this occurs all across our great state. So once they identified the blighted properties, we'll help them. We'll provide them some dollars to actually eliminate that blighted property, whether it's got asbestos in it or not, or refurbish that property. Some of these things have historic value, and they're really jewels of that community. So we'll help them do one or the other, as long as it meets that workforce housing need that the community identified.
Well, in the example I just gave you, that's not hard when you have an ethanol plant right next to you that needs workers. So I understand it. Shawn, where do people get in touch? There's a lot of small communities right now that are listening to you that might not be able to get there, but I know you can, where we're talking to each other right now. How do they get in touch with you?
A couple different ways. What we'd love to do is have them come to the summit. If they can't do it virtually, or if they can't do it in person, we'd love for them to do it virtually. We've cut the cost, so it's really inexpensive. It's $50. If you sign up now, we'll even give you Chuck Marone's free book, or a book for free. He's one of our keynote speakers. You can go to mainstreetnorthdakota.com, or go to the Commerce website, or you can just simply Google MSI North Dakota. You'll get there. If you want to connect with me personally, I'll even give my email address. It's skessel@nd.gov. I'm happy to talk with anybody that would like to hear more about these initiatives.
Okay. Don't go gray. I hope you have a safe flight. I know you're in the airport, so appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Joel. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.